so our Makatogan project is progressing. We have made hardened a blade. We have made the sinew bindings that are going to go around it and hold everything together. And now we need to make a mastic to take up all of the space and get a really good fit when we inlet the blade into the handle. So we're going to go full traditional with this, and the mastic I'm going to use is going to be some spruce resin, pine resin, any coniferous tree resin is going to work. Now we need to melt this first of all, and here I'm fire hollowing a trough for a different video set. You can go ahead and look up that on the channel. And this is just a nice, perfect little bed of hot coals for a nice controlled melting of this mastic that I'm going to make. So I'm going to put that right, not right there, it's going to tip over. Move this stuff around a little bit. Put that right there to warm up. Now, you can see this little lump of resin, it's got a whole pile of sticks and gunk in it, and we want a nice smooth material. And it's going to be pine resin mixed with some temper, and temper is just a non-elastic material that you mix with clay or with a glue like this to give it a little bit more rigidity and help prevent cracking. So my temper is going to be some charcoal. So I'm just crushing up some little bits of charcoal here in the second shell while the first one melts.
Basically using that as a mortar and pestle?
Yeah, I'm just using the shell and a stick. High-tech stuff here, my friends. A shell and a stick. Shell is just a convenient dish. I found this pair of shells that I figured would work well. If I had not found this pair of shells that I figured would work well, I would have gone to a hardware store, just gotten a copper plumbing cap. Now we do want to watch how much heat we put on our shells, which is why this nice controlled bed of coals is so wonderful. Because just like limestone will go to powder if you overheat it, shell will completely go to powder if you overheat it. Okay. Now, we'll talk about bedding the blade in this mastic in due time as we move forward with the project. It's starting to get nice and melty. This is not epoxy. This is not going to give you a good enough adhesion that you can depend on it as your primary means of gluing the blade into the handle, right? Mm-hmm. This is not modern epoxy. These old methods work, but they don't work the same way, okay? So what we want our pine resin mastic to do for us is to stick long enough to hold it in place and to fill all of the gaps so it doesn't wiggle and rattle around. And then it's going to be the sinew binding which actually truly locks the blade into the handle, okay? So this is a bedding compound, and I need to pour some of this off. For a second, left my pliers over here. This is a bedding compound. It is not a full-fledged glue in the modern sense. So I'm melting that. Now mix it in with the charcoal a bit. This is going to be way too much charcoal for that little bit, but I want to now start warming this shell. Melting really quickly now. control, when you're doing any of these sorts of things, control is everything. My shell's breaking. That's sad. Not totally unexpected. So just kind of keep that warm while we mix it all together. Make a good batch. There's not a real recipe for this. There's try it and see if you like it. If it's too brittle, you need either more temper or something to soften it. Things to soften it are waxes and oils. So you can mix a little bit of beeswax in. A lot of folks that do this sort of thing want to be totally traditional to a particular culture, area, and time, and would say, well, I'm doing indigenous North America and beeswax wasn't available. Well, that's true. If you want to go that route, totally fine. No, don't burn. Oh, I see what happened. It came through, because of that crack, it kind of came through the bottom a bit. Burning off the bottom of the shell. Just tilt that up. That doesn't repeat. Keep melting. Anyway, that's totally a legitimate perspective. Not knocking it. But if you're not being very specific to a particular culture, area, and time, go with beeswax. If you are, you can use tallow. If you're totally fine with mixing modern in with your traditional, you can use Vaseline. Okay. You could use a vegetable oil, any of them. But you do need to know, if you go into vegetable oils, that if you use a drying oil like linseed oil, it will, over time, oxidize and do a little bit of chemistry with your resin. And 50-50 pine resin, 50-50 pine resin and linseed oil is the recipe for linoleum. So if you go with linseed oil, you're going to end up with a more complex result. And it will form a permanent plastic. Which if you're doing something, no, that's, get out of there. Take it inside. If you're doing something that's one and done, that's totally fine. If you want this to be a, do I have enough in there? I probably got plenty. Yeah. If you're doing this with the intent of it being a hot melt that will stay a hot melt, that you can, so just melting on the shell, don't need to keep heating it anymore, that you can form and reform and use and reuse multiple times. Knew that was going to happen. That's okay. We got enough. We got plenty. That you can form and reform multiple times, then you would not want to use linseed oil or safflower oil or any of those drying oils, because they will be one and done and form up a plastic material that you won't be able to melt. Got a little bit of schmutz in there. Fell. Now what I want to do is get this and form a ball on the end of this stick as it cools. It's still a little hot. You can see I'm just kind of dipping it and twirling it and letting it cool.
You're getting stuff.
Keep my fire going for the burnout project. Just a little more in and twirl it and let it cool. And we'll get a nice knob on here that we can use as basically a hot melt glue stick when it comes time to mount the blade in our target. So that's how you make a simple pine resin mastic. This has been used. This is literally a worldwide technology. This is not a particular culture, which is why I'm very free and liberal with including lots of different technologies in it. This is the traditional material for mounting stone points and arrow shafts, at ladle darts, blades and handles, all of it. Okay? So it's a really interesting material. This is also the same type of resin that is used in repose and engraving in modern times. Metalwork. Okay? Exactly the same stuff. You can see I'm getting a nice little knob on there. Okay, I think you get the idea of how to twirl a stick. So with that, we will sign off for this little part of the video, this little part of the project. And next time I see you, we will be working on the handle and starting to finish our blade. Till then, have a wonderful day.